Hello and welcome to the newest episode of the New Year Six podcast. Today I'll be continuing my Week 3 game previews. This will be Kansas State at Mizzou, an out-of-conference matchup, still kind of early in the season. I know the conference season hasn't 100% started around the league, so this will be one of those last taste of an out-of-conference game before we get 100% into Big 12 and SEC play. So, to kick it off, if you haven't watched these before, just going to go team by team, call out the keys of the game, what's working and what's not for either team, and then at the end do a final pick prediction, score prediction, all of that fun stuff. So, kicking things off with Kansas State as the away team. Looking at what they've got going on. Injury perspective, they're pretty healthy right now. That's good to see. I am looking at that linebacker room, knowing that Clifton is questionable, and kind of seeing what they might do without his presence. He's been out the last 2 games, but interesting to see what they would do in the event that he does not show up again. But ultimately speaking, I think that gives an opportunity for depth at the linebacker position to show up. Kansas State is a very young linebacker room across the board, specifically in those depth positions. Guys like Asa Newsome, guys like Austin Romaine, Toby Asunsanmi. So some freshmen or redshirt freshmen that don't get a ton of playing time. I want to see how they can rotate into that linebacker core that's generally pretty heavy with guys like Austin Moore, Daniel Green, and Desmond Purnell. So I want to see what happens when those second-string guys rotate in. A lot of teams are running 1s and 2s right now. No quote-unquote true starters. And I want to see what happens when you roll those second-string guys into a starting spot due to fatigue, due to injury, things like that. Knowing that they're already one guy down, those younger players are going to have to step up sooner rather than later. And this might be the game to do it. A competitive team on the road as well. Kansas State is going to have to travel to Columbia for this one. And, I know Missouri has struggled so far this year. Don't count them out of this one. Kansas State is going to have to play their A game if they are going to get out of this with a win as they get ready for Big 12 season. But the play of their linebackers and the depth that rises to the top will be a big factor in determining if Kansas State comes out of this undefeated or with a loss on their resume. With that in mind, looking at what Kansas State has done well so far this year, they're very good against the run. Missouri's rushing attack is kind of average across the board. Kansas State has the number 1 rushing defense in all of college football right now. If you got a running back, good luck. Because Kansas State swallows them up. They do not allow runs. They do not allow yards on the ground. The passing defense has been kind of suspect, but the rushing attack of this defense has been spectacular. And if that continues to be the same, Missouri's going to have to find other options. Missouri's offense so far has stalled for the most part. They're 67th in rushing attack. They are 82nd in pass. And if Missouri has to lean on that passing attack, which they really haven't been that good at so far, it may be a long day for them. So if Kansas State can continue to be the best rushing defense in the country, force Mizzou to throw the ball in situations where they'd rather run it, it's going to open up the playbook a little bit for that Kansas State defense. Kind of lets them know exactly what's ahead of them, from this Mizzou offense, knowing that, you just crowd the box, rush 7, and Missouri's never going to be able to get a run off. Then it's going to just be one-on-one on the outsides and over the middle. If you can stop that, Kansas State wins this game. Just kind of no problem at all there. On the defensive side of the ball, where Kansas State has struggled, which is kind of interesting because I would consider this kind of short yardage situation, Kansas State has not looked good in the red zone defense so far this year. They're 93rd or tied for 93rd in red zone defense. I know red zone stats are a little wonky right now because 1 out of 2 attempts put you at 78th or something like that. It's a little too early to tell what this red zone defense looks like, but they need to take a step forward this week against Missouri. Missouri's red zone offense is fairly good. It's 48th in the country right now, so they will be attacking Kansas State heavily when they get inside their opponent's 20. I think it's a great opportunity for that rushing defense to step up. When I think of first and goal, second and goal, things like that. When I think of first and 10 from the 12, there's not a whole lot of room to throw it. And your rushing defense has a huge opportunity to contribute to the overall success that the red zone defense has not had so far. So when you put those two together, Kansas State needs to take the success from the rushing defense that they have had so far, apply it to the lack of success that the red zone defense has had so far, and ultimately the finished product is that the play of those linebackers, the depth stepping up and filling in gaps where they need be, attacking the line of scrimmage and hitting the running backs in the backfield or only for a short gain. And if and when Missouri does get to the red zone, you stand tall as a defense. So I think Kansas State's win this week is going to depend more or less exclusively on the way the defense plays. That's what I'm interested in. I want to see how this Kansas State defense steps up. The offense has been there for the most part. They can pass the ball. They can run the ball. The O-line plays hard. All that fun stuff. So the Kansas State offense has shown up. I want to see what this defense can do against Missouri. I want to see if they can put it all together, shut down Mizzou, and go back to Manhattan undefeated. In terms of Missouri, in terms of what I want to see coming from them, from an injury perspective, there's some depth missing at the receiver position. A couple guys that are questionable or have left games in the past here. So that would be Houston and Blood at the receiver roles. Those are more depth pieces to this receiver room for Missouri. But with that in mind, yes, you have guys like Luther Bird and guys like Theo Weiss. You have your ones and twos. Like that part's been made abundantly clear. But if one of those guys goes down or one of those guys doesn't perform, who are you going to rely on now that you have two players down? I want to see guys like Jamarian Wayne. I want to see guys like Dennis Jackson and Mekhi Miller, how they fit into this offensive scheme. It's a Missouri passing game that has been below average so far. And when you do have some top-level talent at receiver, it's interesting that they haven't they haven't risen to that level yet. Maybe it's time for a change. Maybe it's time to throw in some guys that haven't gotten some playing time. Keep Kansas State on their toes, keep them guessing, and from there, find a way to beat Kansas State with players that they haven't prepped for mentally. In terms of what Missouri has done well so far this year, very similar to Kansas. They stop the run. Kansas State is the best rushing defense in the country. Mizzou is the 7th best. So tip to the cap for Mizzou. They've also been able to stop the run very, very well. And it's a rushing attack that Kansas State is pretty good at. They're 44th in the country. If you can shut down the run game, force them to attack you from the pass, which, don't get me wrong, Kansas State is good at that. But if you take away an option from them, if you take away their running game and force them to throw, the options or that opportunities create themselves for this Missouri defense. So if you take away one element of what this offense can be, and you really only need to focus on one other side, it creates an avenue for you to win. So that's the way I see it between Kansas State and Mizzou. Whoever can shut down that run better has a very legitimate shot of taking it home just by virtue of that. In terms of what I want to see better from Mizzou, kind of week over week or through the first 2 weeks, that O-line has to shore things up. They are 95th right now in sacks allowed. Generally speaking, it is an experienced O-line. A lot of seniors out there: Javon Foster, Xavier Delgado, Cameron Johnson. So there are skilled players there, and it just has not come together. The left side of the O-line in particular is very experienced and very senior, but the right side maybe is where the problems have been. I haven't watched the O-line in depth to comment on who's specifically giving up these sacks, but the reality is that it needs to get better. And again, it's a Kansas State defense that is going to apply pressure on that O-line. They got to be able to step up, and they got to be able to defend their quarterback. If Brady Cook does not have time to see the play and let the progressions of his receivers happen, Mizzou does not have a chance of winning this game. So with that, if the O-line does step up, if they can hold off Kansas State for a second and allow Cook to progress through his reads and find a way to make the plays that he needs to make, then Mizzou's going to have a shot. I don't think this is a game you overlook. I think this is one of the 5 best games of the week for a reason, and I don't think you should be overlooking. I don't think you should be overlooking Mizzou in any way, shape, or form. They're not a top 25 team, but as an undefeated Power 5 squad, they need to be consistently in the conversation until taken out otherwise. So with that in mind, we'll do a final score prediction, all that fun stuff. Kansas State is the favorite. They are favored by 5 points, and the total is 48.5. I am taking Kansas State to win. I am taking Kansas State to cover, and I am taking the over on 48.5. Final score prediction based on my modeling is Kansas State 34, Missouri 18. I don't think this is going to be particularly close. I think this is a very legitimately good Kansas State squad. I think the offense is there. I think the defense comes together in a big way to shut down Missouri at least a few times, especially as the game progresses. But this Kansas State team is very, very talented. I know right now the top of the conference is Texas and then kind of everyone else. Kansas State is going to be in that conversation, and they'll have a not a signature win, but a very good early season win to cap off the out-of-conference play prior to the Big 12 season starting. So that is my official prediction for Kansas State at Missouri. What are your thoughts? What are your keys to the game? Who do you think is going to win? Let me know down in the comments below. But other than that, thank you for your time today. Tune in next time for the next video of my Week 3 game preview predictions. Next one is going to be Minnesota at North Carolina. A fun game to be had down there. So tune in next time. Thank you all for watching. And, again, week 3 is coming up. We got some good ones this week, some slept-on games, and I can't wait to see how that all comes together for these talented squads out there and how they're going to, play for our viewing pleasure.